All right, let's get right into it. We're going to be talking about the very first sketches of a great digital experience. Before you get to the slick designs, before a single line of code is written, you have these things called low fidelity prototypes. Just think of them as the simple, absolutely essential blueprints for building something people will actually love to use.
You know that feeling, right? You're just tapping around, trying to do something super simple, and you keep landing on the wrong screen, getting more and more frustrated. Well, that kind of confusion doesn't just happen by accident, it happens because of a lack of planning. And today we're going to look at the exact tools designed to prevent that feeling.
This analogy really hits the nail on the head. You just need a plan. You got to know where the doors are supposed to go, how you're going to get from the kitchen to the living room before you start putting up walls. And the tools we're exploring today, user flows and storyboards, are pretty much the architectural blueprints for our digital products.
Okay, so first up in our toolbox is the user flow. Imagine an app is like a city. A user flow is the GPS route you map out to get someone from their starting point to their destination as smoothly and efficiently as possible. It's all about that logical journey. Now, the most important part of this whole definition is that last little phrase, complete a task from start to finish, right? It doesn't matter if it's buying a ticket, sending a message, or ordering a coffee, a user flowcharts every single step a person takes to get to that specific goal. It helps designers see the entire process in one glance. Now, what's really cool is that these aren't just a bunch of random shapes. This is actually a universal language for designers, and it lets anyone on a team understand the user's path. Each shape has a very specific meaning. So let's break down the grammar of this visual language. First, we've got the circle, and that means action. Just think of these as the verbs of our journey. Anytime the user has to do something, tap a button, type in some text, make a choice, we use a circle to show that task. Next up is the rectangle. This represents a screen. So these are the places, the destinations in our little journey. When an action takes the user to a new view, like the home page, a settings page, or an order summary, we use a rectangle to show them where they've landed. And here is where things can get interesting. The diamond. This represents a decision. It's basically a question the user has to answer that will send them down one path or another. Are you a new user? Yes or no? Want to add this to your wish list? Yes or no? This is the fork in the road. And finally, we have the lines and arrows. They're pretty much the glue that holds this whole thing together. They're literally the path connecting every action, screen, and decision to show the direction of travel and create one clear, logical journey. All right, enough with the theory. Let's make this way more concrete with a real-world example that I think we can all get behind, using an app to place a group coffee order. So let's trace this flow together, shall we? We start with an action circle, open app. An arrow takes us to our first screen rectangle, the home screen. From there, another action, search coffee locations. See how it moves? And look, there's that diamond. Order from here? A common mistake is getting way too detailed too early, but this flow avoids that. It focuses on the big decisions, like send menu to team, and it visualizes the entire task so clearly from start to finish. Okay, so user flows give us the logical skeleton, right? The what and the how. But great design is also about emotion and context, the why. And for that, we need to tell a story, which brings us to our second tool, storyboards. This quote just gets right to the heart of it. A user flow shows you a process, but a storyboard shows you an experience. It puts a human face on the problem, and this is so crucial. It helps the entire team build empathy. It gets them to feel what the user feels, and that shared understanding is absolutely invaluable. The easiest way to think about it is like a mini comic strip. It's not just about the screens. It's about the user's environment, their feelings, and the situation that led them to use your product in the first place. It adds that all-important human context to the design process. And just like any good story, a UX storyboard has 4 key elements. You've got the character, that's our user, the scene, where are they, at work, on a bus. Then there's the plot. What's the problem they're trying to solve? And finally, the narrative, the sequence of events that shows how your product helps them solve it. Now, designers tend to use 2 main types of storyboards. First, there's the big picture storyboard. This is something you use early on. It really focuses on the user and their problem to get everyone on the team excited about why they're even building the product. Then you've got the close-up storyboard, which comes later. It zooms way in on the product itself, focusing on all the details of how it works. So let's see this thing in action. For our example, we're going to follow the story of Dan. a musician in a band who has just run into a massive problem that's threatening an upcoming gig.
Let's follow Dan's story through these panels. Okay, so in the first frame, you can see the emotion. Dan is totally frustrated because his drummer just quit. That's the problem. In the next few frames, we see him using an app to find a replacement. See, this isn't just a process. It's a story of frustration turning into relief. It makes the team root for Dan. And those happy faces in the final frames say it all. The app solved his problem and the band is booking gigs again. That is the power of storytelling.
So, we've seen the map with user flows, and we've seen the story with storyboards. But what's the big takeaway here? Why do we go through all this struggle with just pen and paper before even thinking about code?
Well, the power is really in their simplicity. First off, they're incredibly fast and cheap. An idea that fails on paper costs you basically nothing, but an idea that fails after weeks of development can cost a fortune. But the real magic, the thing that ties this all together, is that they are relentlessly user-focused. They force you to walk in your user's shoes, making sure that what you eventually build actually solves a real human problem. So, I'll leave you with this little thought. These tools are all about mapping a path from a problem to a solution. So think about a process in your own life, maybe at work, that's confusing or frustrating. What kind of journey could you map out to make it better? What story could you tell to solve that problem?